Brian Baldinger earlier today came on the roast, said that the Jaguars are the ultimate test for the 49ers.
It's probably a good thing that they're going across the country to Jacksonville and playing one of the hottest teams in the league. Nothing can kind of bring you back to your winning ways than beating a good team on the road. Because when you beat a good team on the road, you get 6 hours with each other on the plane ride back. Like you're watching videos together and you're playing cards, and it's just, it's just a camaraderie that's just built, especially if you're like, you go and you beat one of the elite teams and an AFC team that's won playoff games and they got everything going for them, and you go into Jacksonville and beat them, you're like, we're back where we belong.
Right.
And in one game, you could restore what we saw the first 5 weeks of the season. I just think this is a perfectly timed matchup, considering the Niners hadn't won a game in a month. And, Jacksonville's done nothing but win in the last month. It's the ultimate test right now for them.
Well, here's the thing, though, about what Brian Baldinger is saying. It's the perfect timing. As long as they win.
Right. Jacksonville's won 5 in a row.
Yeah, this is not the perfect timing at all if they go out and lose. And so if there's one thing that I disagreed with Peter King about, it is how crucial this game is, the urgency that exists in this particular game. It feels to me like the 49ers are not in a spot where they can afford to lose. Baldy's right. I do agree. If you win this game Sunday, it very much feels like, okay, all's forgiven. All's forgiven. You're going to come home. You probably handle Tampa. You're going to be 7-3. And then let's get into the holidays and all the difficulty that will be there with the Seattles and the Phillies and the Baltimores, and see if you can work your way through that as best as possible. But that only works if you win the game. If you lose this one where it's like, okay, you had 2 weeks to think about this. You acquired Chase Young. You tried to rework your approach, and you came out here and had the same thing happen that was happening for 3 weeks leading up to it. I'm telling you, man, it will feel devastating. It will feel like we're still at the drawing board, and you have completely at that point wasted a 5-0 start. I mean, tossed it into the trash, and you're almost back to 500. So I'm not saying the season would be over, but I don't know how you can downplay the importance of Sunday's game.
Oh, they need a hot start, too. It's not just the game. It's the first half of the game. This Trevor Lawrence is a good young quarterback. They're clearly getting the ball out fast. They got a speedy running back in Travis Etienne. He's not awesome, but he's fast. And they've got a lot of speed on their offense. I mean, Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, Evan Ingram. Those are very, very fast weapons. So can the Niners match up? Can they get any heat on Trevor Lawrence? And it's not even really necessarily about heat in this game, because if Lawrence is getting the ball out in 2.5 seconds or whatever, you're probably not going to sack him that much, but you better have tight coverage underneath. And something's going to have to give here, because I think the 49ers clearly are going to want to play tight coverage underneath, but the Jaguars have a speed advantage. So does Lawrence try to double move them and throw it over their head? And then do they give up big plays? And if they do give up big plays, how does their defense react to that? I mean, there's just a lot going on here. And then this is not the kind of defense that you want to fall into a hole against. Josh Allen is a really, really good pass rusher. He's got 9 sacks. So, I mean, he's one of the most underrated rushers in the game right now. So, and he's coming off of one edge. And, is Trent going to go? He didn't practice. I mean, tomorrow's going to be interesting.
Big day tomorrow, yes.
We don't know. Trent usually takes Wednesday off. And from what I heard, he probably took Monday off.
That was a bonus practice.
Right.
Because they're coming off of a bye.
Yeah, and so to me, either tomorrow or Thursday, we're going to have a good idea if Trent's going to go. Now, Jalen Moore's played okay, but they're going to go without Aaron Banks, who's probably been their second best offensive lineman. That means John Feliciano starts at left guard. He's graded out well when he's played, but that's a big question mark. So, I'm eager to see it. And then there's all kinds of adjustments. I think in the next couple days, it's going to be interesting to hear what Shanahan says, what Wilks says, what Forster says, as far as is Wilks Have they had this conversation? Is he going to coach from the booth where he's comfortable? Is he going to move down to the sideline? Is it going to be dictated to him? So we're going to have to, figure that out in the next 24 hours. And then do they have any new wrinkles offensively, or is it still going to be a lot of CMC? To me, this is probably the most interesting game just because they've lost 3 in a row and they were rolling so well early in the year. They got to get this one. And I don't care what it looks like, but they need this game on their terms, which I think is sadly kind of where they're at right now as a football team.
Seems like that's kind of the deal every week. That's the characteristics that's growing that I hate.
Right.
Which is that it feels like right now the 49ers have got to get a lead, and that turns the game script in their favor. Some of that is normal. That's like, of course, it's better to play with a lead than not. But with the Niners' inability to come back, what Brock Purdy has looked like in the fourth quarter of late, the whole game script feels like it just ends up on its ear if the Niners don't have a good first quarter, and that's not a great thing to say about a football team. You want to play a little game real quick?
Yeah, let's do it.
Just because we see this a lot or hear this a lot. Trevor Lawrence, number 1 pick in the draft a few years ago, is an elite quarterback, right? What if I throw out a stat and you tell me who's better at it, Brock Purdy or Trevor Lawrence?
Okay.
Now, granted, I understand all the different things that go into this, but I would argue both of them have good rosters. Both of them have good coaches. Both of them have good defenses, in theory. Okay. Who has thrown, because they've played now the same number of games, 8 games. Who's thrown for more yards, Brock Purdy or Trevor Lawrence?
Brock Purdy. That'd be my guess.
That is correct. 2,033 to 1,935. Brock Purdy. Who has more touchdown throws?
They haven't gone to the receivers, but I'd say Brock Purdy.
That is correct. 12 to 9. Who has more interceptions?
Brock Purdy's got 5, I think, and they're all in the last 3 weeks. I'll say Brock Purdy.
That is also correct. 5 to 4. He has more interceptions. You're doing great.
Yeah.
You're doing just great.
All right.
Who has a better completion percentage?
Probably Brock Purdy because it's close to 70%.
Trick question. They both have the exact same completion percentage.
Okay.
68.3. Like down to the decimal. They have the exact same completion percentage. Yards per attempt.
Brock Purdy.
9.1 to 7.1.
Brock Purdy, I believe, is the highest quarterback rating on throws 25 yards down the field.
Who has
a league?
Who's been sacked more?
Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence.
Also correct. 19 sacks for Trevor Lawrence, 14 times for Brock Purdy. Okay. Who has a better yards per rushing attempt number?
Trevor Lawrence.
Also correct. 5.1 to 4.1. And Trevor has, I didn't ask this because it's too easy. He has outgained Brock almost 2 to 1 in terms of.
He's underrated.
He's a very good. Yeah, he can run. Both of them can run. Trevor seems to do it a little bit more planned, a little bit more often. I think you already know this one, but I'll ask, who's got a better quarterback rating?
Definitely Brock Purdy.
Okay. That is correct. Brock Purdy, 105.4, and Trevor Lawrence, 93.6. So outside of running the ball and the fact that he's thrown one more pick, any of that surprise you? I mean, I know you're dialed into this pretty good, but
yeah, I mean, I'm staring at these numbers a lot because I'm, talking a lot of Niner football. I'm a little surprised by the fact that Brock's got more touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Because I figured that Trevor Lawrence would have more when you look at, just all the weapons he has. And Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, Evan Ingram's kind of had a little bit of a bust out, but they're not getting touchdowns, I guess.
He's only got one 300-yard game so far this year, Trevor Lawrence. Their passing game, it feels like it should be better. I'm not saying that it's not good, but yeah, it's been much more about ETN than anything else.